The amazing story of mercenary enrollment starts off with 3 soldiers captured, suddenly rescued by a hooded young man. He brings the men back to the troops flawlessly, and as they are about to say their goodbyes, an explosion goes off. The young man's hoodie comes off and he recovers very quickly from the blast. We then skip to 6 months later and we are now at school. Everyone is complimenting the new student's good looks, and our main character introduces himself as Ijin. Girls are commenting on the new student, and a girl wonders if they are talking about her brother. She explains that her brother, who was thought to be dead with her parents in a plane crash, is suddenly back 10 years later. We have a flashback of probably a few days earlier, and the grandpa cries to see his thought to be dead grandson back alive, and then she meets her older brother again, and he calls her Daeyoon. We'll leave the flashback, and then the girl is calling to Daeyoon rudely. She tells Daeyoon to give her her gym clothes, and then Daeyoon says what will she wear, and the girl tells her that she's not allowed to talk back and slaps her. We go back to Ijin, and a classmate says he looks pathetic and tries to trip him, but he sees it and just glares at him. We go to another flashback where the lieutenant from earlier tells him not to fight at all. He says there is no way that he would fight without having data of the place, and that he's a professional who's lived on the battlefield for 10 years. The lieutenant says he is not saying it for him, he is worried about his opponent. The teacher asks why is he not moving. He apologizes and goes to his seat, prompting the classmate to think that he is scared. The teacher tells his desk buddy to take care of him. He agrees and introduces himself as Park Young-chan. He tells him the guy who tried to trip him is Lee Jae-yoon, and there's also another guy called Ju Hyukjin. He tells him to be careful around them, and then he starts dazing in class, remembering his memories as a mercenary, and says that this country is peaceful. Ijin is waiting for his sister after school, and then he walks home together, and then he says that it's really awkward between them. He says it must be hard for him since she lost him at 7 years old. They continue to walk, and the girl says what time is Ijin coming, and then calls out to Daeyoon. Daeyoon wonders what she should do. Someone asks who is that, and the girl says the one that Ijin is targeting. She asks if Ijin is her boyfriend, and she says no, it's her brother. A guy sees Ijin glaring at him and tells him does he want to die. Ijin analyzes everything he is doing as if he is no threat at all, and then remembers that he should try not to fight. As he's about to get hit, Daeyoon apologizes, but the bullies do not care, and then Ijin sees Daeyoon's worried face and hits the guy's arm. He tells her to stand still and bashes the guy's head in. He sighs and then says he guess he broke his promise on the very first day. The other girl and guy look in astonishment as Ijin switches between merciless and caring. Ijin and Daeyoon go home, and then Daeyoon asks him did he do that to the bullies, and he says yes. She is surprised, thinking that he doesn't seem like someone who would do that, and then she tells him that it's rude to stare at people here, and he says he knows because it's like that everywhere. He says he only did that because they were causing her trouble, and she blushes as he doesn't understand. Their grandfather asks how was his first day, and he says no problems at all. Ijin falls asleep, and another flashback from when he first got here, saying it's okay that Ijin doesn't remember much from when he was little, and that he is glad he is alive. We also get another flashback of when he was on the plane crash as he slowly gets his memory back. Ijin wakes up gasping, and then he sees his sister cooking leftovers in the kitchen, and then she leaves. Ijin is talking to the nameless girl from yesterday, and she finds the connection between Daeyoon and Ijin. Yesterday, Ijin arrived later, and she asks what happened. The girl freezes up, remembering Ijin's face, and asks will bullying Daeyoon be smart or not. She calms down and says it's okay since Ijin's brother is the top of the 3rd years. Ijin throws something at Daeyoon's face and tells her to come with her. She takes her outside, beats her up, and tells her not to act up with her brother. She says she will make Ijin's life tiresome and that he messed with her brother's friends yesterday. Daeyoon screams at Ijin as she slaps her for raising her tone, and then Daeyoon tears up as she fears for her brother and walks away. Ijin's brother comes to Ijin's class as Daeyoon shows up bruised. But before all this, Lee and Jun from earlier are throwing erasers at Park, but then Ijin stops the last one. They agree to beat up Ijin after school, and then Park asks Ijin if he can show him around after school. He says he can't, and he has to go home with his sister, and tells her that she is Daeyoon. Park's face freezes as he knows his sister for having a difficult school life. Daeyoon was attracted by a lot of guys, but then one of the girls started bullying her for it. The bullying got so bad that people are surprised Daeyoon still attends school. We then cut to the dinner, and Grandpa asks is Daeyoon's school life going well, and she says of course. We cut back to class, and Ijin says thanks for telling him. The alpha group of the 3rd years come in now, and Ijin's brother Kizu says he has business to handle. Jun says he is the only guy that he would have trouble dealing with. Kim's lackeys tell who Ijin is and says how could they lose to someone so pathetic. He calls Ijin to him and he asks Kizo if he is Kizo, and Kizo says ha, you know me even though it's only like your 2nd day. Daeyoon comes and says she is sorry. Ijin is right behind her and calls her a drama queen. Ijin says there's no need to apologize and takes out the first guy. He says you're not at fault, it's these guys. He hits the 2nd guy in the throat and the 3rd in the gut, and then Kizo's asking to himself, who is this? Everyone looks in shock as Ijin asks, so you're the one who's been giving my sister a hard time? Kizo says he knows the little tricks, so what? He does a fast kick thinking he hit his face, but he's blocked by Ijin. Then he does another kick which also gets blocked. Ijin then grabs his leg punches him in the face, and then he lands on the ground, feeling Ijin's overwhelming strength. Ijin then kicks Kizo on the floor, knocking him out. Everyone is shocked to see the top dog in school lose. Ijin says, "What is this?" and Ijin walks over to her with Ijin thinking that he's going to hit her too. Daeyoon tells him to stop and tells her, "Weren't they just bullying you just now?" She says, "How did he know?" And then she asks herself, is he fighting for her again? She says she is okay now, and Ijin says okay and walks her to class. Everyone gossips about how Kizo's group lost to one person, and Lee says he would have lost terribly if he fought Ijin. Daeyoon says he must be good at fighting and apologizes again for forcing him in the fight. Ijin says of course he would fight. Where he's from, people only think about themselves. People did not care if it did not affect them directly, but sometimes those people acted differently when family was involved. Daeyoon questions him and says family, and he says yeah. That's why he wondered what a family was. Daeyoon asks, doesn't he barely remember her and Grandpa? And he says yeah, but he knows for sure that they are a family. Daeyoon blushes and says she is fine now and leaves. Ijin returns, and Lee and Jun say he was amazing. Park also adds in and says he agrees that he was also amazing. Kizo himself and all his lackeys all in shock. Kizo says there's something different about Ijin, and Ijin asks how long does he plan to stay like this. She says it's just one person, and he tells her to shut up, and if she keeps talking then go fight him herself. She leaves while slamming the door and goes back to the class where Daeyoon is at. She says she is jealous and that whatever happens she can just go to her brother. Daeyoon doesn't respond, which makes Ijin mad, and then she questions to herself, can she do nothing anymore? And she says there's no way I'm doing that. Daeyoon is walking, thinking of her brother's words, and Ijin's bullying, asking herself will she be able to stop going through that. Ijin asks her what's wrong and says he's waiting for directions from her. Ijin looks on and says she is enjoying herself and wants to see how long she can keep it up. Daeyoon and Ijin go to the supermarket and everyone's complimenting Ijin's good looks. Daeyoon asks Ijin did he have a girlfriend, and he says no, that he was too busy. Ijin asks her the same question about a boyfriend, and she says no, that she was too busy. They return home and Ijin gets a new phone from Gramps. Ijin smiles and enjoys his new phone. Daeyoon leaves for school early and is happy her grandpa liked her soup, but then she's suddenly kicked out of nowhere. Three girls in masks show up and she immediately recognizes Ijin's voice. They go to a karaoke place and beat Daeyoon up, who was screaming really loud. The manager asks if she is right, she says yes and goes home. Lucky Girl asks Ijin if they will be okay, and she says of course. Lucky Girl also says something is bothering her, and Ijin says it has nothing to do with them, and Lucky says yeah, you're right. Ijin doesn't see his sister after school. He calls her but gets no answer. She is at home under the covers. Ijin sees his sister was home, knocks, and Daeyoon says that she was asleep and that she's not feeling too well. Ijin notices her voice is shaky. He looks on her shoes, sees blood, and gazes, wondering who would mess with his sister. Ijin tends to Daeyoon's wounds as she says she fell down the stairs dodging a bite. He asks if she wants to go to the hospital, and she says no, and in her head she doesn't want anyone to know that Ijin did this. We get a flashback of Daeyoon going to the principal's office and accusing Ijin, but since she didn't have any evidence and attackers were wearing masks, she got off scot-free. Daeyoon tells Ijin thanks and is glad she didn't tell him because there's nothing a student can do. Kizo's group is talking about what to do with Ijin, and they agree to get him tomorrow. Ijin calls him, telling her that she took care of Daeyoon, and he tells her that she is insane and tells her good job. Ijin walks to the meeting spot, taking everyone down with ease, one by one by one. Kizo is shocked for a second time, wondering just who Ijin is. Ijin tells Kizo do not mess with his sister. Kizo questions how to beat him, and Ijin asks what his sister has ever done with them. Ijin gets his hits in and asks what he should do with him. He says this is his final warning, and if he hears rumors again, he will find them, and that Ijin should be careful too. Ijin says Ijin leaving her brother's spot, and she trips and lands on her arm. Ijin gets a call from his grandpa and leaves. Ijin asks her brother what happened, and he tells her do not mess with Daeyoon. She says what, are you scared now? And he yells her name again and says if she messes with Daeyoon, he will beat her himself instead. Grandpa is waiting outside for Ijin and tells him that Daeyoon got hurt again. Grandpa says there was a lot of things he couldn't do for Daeyoon raising a girl, and that he hasn't done enough for her. When he lost his kids in an accident, Daeyoon is the one who helped him get through it, and that breaks his heart to see that Daeyoon is hurt. He's also upset that Daeyoon can't come to him for help. Ijin says that he knows one thing for sure, and that's that Gramps loves Daeyoon very much, and Daeyoon loves Grandpa very much. He tells him not to worry and that Ijin will watch over her. Gramps tells Ijin that he has no idea how happy he is that he is here now. Kizo's father sees him in the hospital, and he isn't surprised that he got hurt, which makes his mother upset. Ijin now has a broken arm, and their mother says the guy who did it will get what they deserve. Kizo tells Ijin why would she tell her parents, and that it's humiliating, looking like he snitched after getting beat up. Ijin says well how could she keep her arm and her brother in the hospital a secret? Kizo asks that Ijin do that to her arm, and she says of course, and to just hang in there, that they will show Ijin who they mess with. Their mother says that she contacted the chief, and then the father says just leave it to the school. Her mother says she cannot wait until Monday since today is Saturday. The father says do you know what the chief does, and she says she can pretty much tell. She knows that he's the one who's been cleaning up things for the father for years. Ijin overhears and is excited to know the chief is involved. We then see three men where two of them are saying getting in a child's fight is humiliating. We get introduced to the chief, and he says this sucks as well. Ijin wonders at home will the family try anything else. Someone is now at the door looking for Ijin, and and Ijin says he would be right back and that they are some acquaintances. Ijin wonders who these people are and why they were looking for him. They tell the chief they brought him and that he came with no fuss. The chief says let's get this over with, and they bring out a bat and say to grab his arm. The chief prepares to take a text to say that he took care of it, but he can't remember the mother's number. The henchmen say, you poor thing, why did you mess with those kids? And Ijin says, so this is about Kizu. The chief says what's with him and that he isn't showing any emotion or even scared. Ijin then takes on the 2 guards with ease, and the chief says that he is properly trained. Ijin turns his focus to the chief, and the chief asks if he is a regular high schooler. The chief decides to fight with a high schooler, and Ijin thinks about his openings. The chief is now throwing all types of punches, Ijin blocking and evading. The chief asks who is he again, and Ijin responds with just a regular high schooler. The chief says no way and that he's on a different level. Ijin gets in his stance, and the chief notes that he's now getting serious. The chief gets angry that he is trying to block and counter his attacks against himself, but that is exactly what Ijin does, and he ultimately defeats the chief, and the chief is in shock for losing to a kid. He looks at his face and says he wasn't nervous for 1 second, and that those kids messed with the wrong person. The mother's worried that the chief hasn't called back yet, and then he calls, and the father puts it on the speaker. The father says he apologizes for a dumb request, but the chief ends up apologizing as well, and says that his children messed with the wrong person, and that he was beaten. The father in shock, who says the chief is respected in the underworld, lost to a high schooler. Suddenly there's a noise outside the room, and they see their guards all on the ground. The whole family in shambles. Ijin walks in as the chief is still in line, saying he is not a regular kid. The chief is amazed that he already got there and considers retirement. The mother asks if it was Ijin that hurt her kids, and the father says stay out of it. He asks Ijin how he got hurt, and Ijin says, well, I guess there was a couple people guarding this place. The father questions how he defeated the chief, the guards, and also found out that he was here. The mother says look how he's acting and that she will press charges. Ijin says her mom is right and that there is nothing that Ijin can do about the police. The mom says does he have any idea who he's messing with, and he says he does. He says the dad is a congressman who has been elected twice and he's running for the next election. Her mom says you still knew that and you're still doing this, and she says some kids just don't know how dangerous the world is. Ijin laughs as she says Ijin's life is over. The mom calls a prosecutor, but as soon as she does, Ijin is playing a video of Ijin beating up another student and the student fearing for her life. Ijin asks her for money, which she only has $180, and she tells her to get a job and bring her about $404 USD equivalent by the end of the week, not caring if she has to steal or sell her body to get it. The mom, in shock, says she will call the prosecutor later, and Ijin asks where did he get the video. We get a small flashback of Ijin sneaking into their house and getting it off her laptop. Ijin tries to explain to her dad, but he tells her to shut up. Ijin says he also has footage of Kizo and that they often film themselves bullying, stealing, and also beating up his sister in karaoke, even though he has no idea what that is. The mom yells at Ijin's threats, and Ijin says it's not his fault, and that they started the threat by hiring someone to assault him, which he also has video proof of. The father says, so you did this because of your sister, and Ijin says how they always take their children's side, he has to protect his sister. The father says he understands and will provide his sister's bills. Ijin says he doesn't need it, and the father says does he want an apology. Ijin says that she would rather bite her tongue and die, but Ijin declines that too. He says apologizing won't undo what happened, and an apology wouldn't be genuine anyway. He wants both the brother and sister permanently out of his sister's sight. The father agrees and says he will send them overseas. The mom and Ijin both yell, but the dad tells them both to be quiet. He asks if Ijin is satisfied, and Ijin says he wants them both gone by tomorrow. The father says he will inform the school immediately, and since he filled his request, he would like the footage. Ijin gives him a menacing glare, and the father says how could someone his age have those eyes, and Ijin says that he must think he is an idiot. The father says he misspoke, and Ijin leaves. Ijin returns home to a worried grandpa and Daeyoon, and he says he is fine. Daeyoon says that they look like bad people and that she was worried. Ijin tells her that she should worry about herself before him, and he asks how she is doing. Daeyoon says that she is much better, and he tells her that she won't be falling down the steps anymore. Ijin says that he cleared it out, which leaves Daeyoon confuzzled. Daeyoon returns to school and everyone's saying Ijin isn't coming anymore. Daeyoon finds out and then realizes that Ijin already knew. She doesn't know what to say to him. Ijin just smiles, says see you later, and Daeyoon cries. Now we go to Ijin's crew, and they were talking about Ijin. So Arlaki thought that Ijin's mom was going to take care of it, but she's now worried that Ijin has something to do with it, and to also do with her leaving school. Ijin then shows up and says that she's only going to leave for 1 semester while her dad says he will handle it and that he can't leave the videos alone. Her lackeys laugh, seeing it as a vacation for her, and they ask why is her brother going as well, and she says that it's a family matter. The lackeys ask what happened to Ijin and Kizo's gang, and she says that he probably took care of him. Ijin is mad that Daeyoon is probably doing whatever she wants, and she says let's go educate her one more time. She says it makes her puke knowing that she would be full of herself when she is gone. The lackey's calling out to Ijin, but Ijin is still talking, saying she will have her mom put their grandpa out of work, and she calls Daeyoon a bug. Suddenly someone behind her says they're glad that came, and it's a hooded figure with a mask. I wonder who that could be. Ijin yells out Ijin's name, and he says, "You Ijin, who is that?" Ijin definitely recognizes his voice, and he says they were having a good conversation, and everyone that beat up his sister is here in this room right now. He asks why aren't they playing music, and that don't they love to be nosy? He closes the karaoke door, and then you can just see the murderous intent in his pupils, and then we cut to the family with Kizo in the hospital. His dad is saying where is Ijin, he hasn't seen her. Kizo says she was saying goodbye to her friends, and the dad said that she should have stayed quiet until the plane ride. A man suddenly bursts in the room asking for the congressman, and he says he needs to see this. He turns on the TV and finds out the videos of his 2 children have been published online. Then we go to Ijin outside, and the chief meets him and asks him why did he leak the footage even though him and his dad had a deal. Ijin says he needs to take care of it quietly to protect his identity, and that their parents were politicians, so he thought it best to take care of it quietly as he watches his sister get beat up on the computer. He says he has a twisted personality, and the chief says does he think the dad will stand by, but Ijin says he won't have time for that. So then the TV now states evidence against the dad. This man is going against voter fraud, money laundering, and solicitation. The dad sits down in shock, and the chief asks did Ijin steal his files of all the dirt he had on the dad just in case. He asks again who Ijin is, and he states, just a normal high schooler. The chief giggles and says like how you are, and then that finishes the first arc or the first 10 chapters of Mercenary Enrollment. If you guys are new to this channel, like, comment, subscribe. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Let's go!